warm-up period. They're about to try for their 5th consecutive win. They're getting a good round of applause from their own booster club, who have traveled all the way from Charlestown to be here in Peterborough tonight.
Need more energy throughout the day? Looking for a kick to your workout? RockinThatIDLife.com has you covered with delicious flavors you've grown to love in tropical fruit and mixed berry, but now fall in love with the new fruit punch and orange flavors. Try them all at RockinThatIDLife.com.
Realtor Mike Burgoyne with Real Brokerage LLC makes the moving process easier. Work with a realtor who plays and studies the game and will work as hard as the boys on the ice to get you the best deal. Check out Mike on the web at strikewithmike.com and jumpstart your move today. That's strikewithmike.com.
Welcome to episode 7 of season 12. This is episode number 416 all time of the often imitated, never duplicated. If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits? Putting on the Ritz. We're the original St. Louis Blues hockey podcast. Let's Go Blues Radio. Special thanks to our sponsors, RockinThatIDLife.com, StrikeWithMike.com, and CenterIceBrewery.com for proudly sponsoring the show. Please check them out. Also, don't forget to check out our t-shirt shop at letsgoblues.com for some well-designed and fairly priced blues-themed t-shirts. It is Wednesday, June 17th. We're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. To interact with the show on social media, our handle on social channels is LGB Radio. Just search for us and you'll find us. If you haven't already done so, please like, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, buy a t-shirt from our shop, name your Chell character after one of our hosts, or do whatever you can do to help us out. I'm your host, Jeff Ponder, and I'm joined by the legendary Kurt Price and a guy who likes to name podcasts after pornography, Stephen Ground.
Oh, God.
It was even better after we won the cup. He's like, "Oh my gosh,
right.
change it."
I got to change my name now. Yeah, I think we even said that on this show. We were like, well, I guess two guys, no cup have to change their name.
There was a debate for a minute, but we had to do it. Yeah, I was in awe of how professional that intro was, and you caught me off guard with the comments. So
I wrote that earlier, and as I was typing it out, I started laughing. I'm like, it's going to be really hard to read this.
You did a great job. It was impressive.
Thank you. Bill Day and producer Austin are on assignment tonight. The agenda for tonight includes discussion about a blues broadcaster departing the booth, the blues booth, as well as revealing your first 2 left-wing picks for the Let's Go Blues Radio St. Louis Blues all-time team. All that and more on this scrum-trelescent episode of Let's Go Blues Radio. So again, I'm joined by Kurt and Steven. So we've had both you guys on for separate reveal shows. Kurt, you did the left D, and Steven, you did the right D, but I'm happy to have you both here for left wing. We should have some good discussion tonight.
Let's hope so. It was either do the show or watch My Cousin Vinny. So
that's a tough choice.
It was a toss-up.
Yeah. Oh, that's one of my wife's favorites.
You can't lose.
No,
that's a win either way. So.
We've got Adam Gold in the Facebook chat, usually winning unlimited over on YouTube. He says, have I ever mentioned how I hate the draft lottery?
I don't think he has.
I think he has maybe 1 or 300 times.
You know what he needs to do? He needs to come up with a separate plan, like a better plan than what they have.
To
prevent tanking. Yeah.
Yeah,
something like that.
The silver plan.
Call it something like the silver plan. Yeah.
Yeah, his name is Adam Gold, so I think he should definitely go with silver plan.
Yeah, or white
maybe
gold.
Maybe Adam Silver would jump on that.
There we go.
Silver plan.
I like the white gold plan.
The white gold plan. the cubic zirconia plan. How about that?
Right. It looks really good until you put it under a microscope, right?
Right. Adam says he loves the silver plan. Yeah, let's do it. Come on, Adam. What's stopping you, bud? We got a guest behind Kurt there.
Yeah.
Hey, little guy.
My Great Pyrenees, Dexter. He when you're doing the intro, he sneezed, and when Big Dog sneezes, it's like his whole head shakes back and forth, and it's like a big slobbery mess. And it kind of made me jump a little bit. I was like, oh my God, what was that?
How much does he weigh? Because he's a big boy.
He weighs a lot. 120 probably. 120. Oh. No, probably 130, 40. I don't know.
Can you bench press your dog?
I can pick him up. I can pick him up, but it's like a squat kind of a thing where I have to,
Mhm.
you know, I got to make sure I lift with my back. Otherwise, I'll hurt
that's
myself.
right.
It's a good call. Yes, definitely lift with the back always,
Right.
especially at
Did
your
Did you
age.
lift with your back? Yes, of course I did.
We were joking, I think last time with Steven about who's the elder statesman of the show. And Martine won. He was at 40. Kurt, I believe you're in your 60s. So you are the elder statesman this time.
Late 60s, right?
Late 60s, yeah. 67, I believe.
48.
48. I mean, I know I joke a lot. And like I think I even told Martine, you don't look a day over 39 and a half. But Kurt, I put you early 40s.
Okay.
You look good, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
I wear a lot of backwards hats, which like shaves years off your life until you get
really
to a
does.
certain age. Until you get to a certain age where you look ridiculous. I think when you actually start to look older, like you look your age, you wear a backwards hat, you're like, all right, what are you trying to do?
Yeah. I think I've said it on this show before that somebody once said something to me about how backwards hats are for children. And I'm like, oh, am I that old guy? And one of my friends was like, no, dude, it's a hockey guy thing. And I'm like, you're right, actually. It is a hockey guy thing. A lot of hockey players do that.
Hockey players do it, and Fred Durst, right? That's really, and the guy from King of Queens. That's about it.
And that's a list. That's a list you want to be on. You know, those three people.
That's you've made it when you.
Yes. I'm officially on the backwards hat list. Speaking of backwards hats, did you see, I don't know if it was on a podcast or radio show or what, but Mark McGuire gave an interview and he talked about how everybody back in the 90s was doing steroids. But if you had a pretty swing and wore a backwards hat, they just threw your test in the trash and didn't care.
So Ken Griffey was a user, huh?
Yeah. I'm like, he just outed Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah. Huh.
Right? Who else would he be talking about?
Nobody. He's known for his swing and the backwards hat, right?
Yep.
I mean, he also didn't look like he wasn't like a jacked up, Canseco or a McGuire looking guy either. Sosa guy. So and Bonds got bulky, huge. Griffey Jr. kind of looked like Bonds did early in his career, right? Kind of on the skinnier side. So.
Oh, yeah. When Bonds came up, he was a scrawny dude. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, he put on like 80 pounds this winter.
McGuire was always kind of big, but he got really big.
Yeah. His Cardinals days, he was a monster.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I don't know if you guys have anything to drink tonight. I actually do this time have a beer. So our official beers of the episode of number 416. Tonight I am drinking... I've said before on the show how much I love Kona. They've been really they've probably been out for a while, but I'm just now finding them in local stores. These variety packs, and they've got this one in it, a Mai Tai Light. It tastes like a Mai Tai, and it is just so refreshing and smooth. And oh my God, go to Schnucks, buy one of the variety packs, try this out. It's very good. And
it's a beer?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a beer. I mean, look, it's
lager, ale. Does it say what it is?
I think it's a lager. It doesn't say, but
okay.
It's got with real orange, pineapple, and limes. Tropical wheat is what they call it.
Okay. Give me a good summer, light, crisp, kind of a summery, maybe a little fruity.
Yeah. It's very fruity. It's nice.
Yeah. I gotta like the fruity.
What about you, Kurt?
I've just got my Arby's Coke here. I don't have a beverage. I rushed home, got out, had a night of pickleball, came home and just sat down and jumped on with you guys, and so I didn't have no time to open a beer. I'm not in a beer mood right now. Just Arby's Coke.
You want to hear how ridiculous I am? I have been very good. I've been going off soda. I literally let myself have one a week, and so I had one. So I'm getting ready for the show, and I'm like, you know what? I really don't feel like beer tonight. I'll have a soda. Why not? I'm going to grab a soda. As I'm reaching for a Dr. Pepper, I'm like, no, you had a soda with dinner. So I'm like, we went to Raising Cane's, and I'm like, nope. And then I'm like, to be healthy, I'll grab a beer instead of a soda.
Wait a second.
What is that? Come on.
Hold on.
Exactly. I know.
No. Let's back up. You're trying to be healthy, and you're at Raising Cane's.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's cheat day, baby. Cheat day.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. It's like because they have fried chicken fingers, right? And that's about it.
That's it. That's literally all that's on their menu. That's like coleslaw.
Coleslaw. Oh yeah, even healthier, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Creamy or what's the other kind? I don't eat coleslaw.
I don't either. I didn't get the coleslaw. I got an extra piece of garlic bread, which is even healthier.
There you go.
You know what's great? You like Captain D's or Long John Silver's, and you can get fried cod, hush puppies, French fries, one big basket of fried goodness.
I like it. Steven, I think we're still on drinks. You have anything with you tonight?
I do. I have a very exotic Budweiser Select.
Nice.
But I'll tell you, this is actually exotic now that I live in Florida, since they don't distribute this down here. I actually brought it down from my run up over the weekend because it's one of my favorite light beers, probably my favorite, kind of mass produced light beer. So I like to have it on hand, and only time I can get it is when I'm up there.
I've heard that they don't distribute Bud Select. It's not across the U.S. Like, I didn't know that. It's been around here forever.
You know what the slogan is, right? Brewed for the Lou.
That's true. Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
If you'll allow me a quick story, I think you guys will enjoy this.
No.
So they don't have Bud Select anywhere outside of St. Louis. They do have Bud Select 55, which is an even more watered down, even lower calorie beer.
Yep.
I did not know this. I have a friend and a coworker down here who has a very thick Southern accent. He was born in Biloxi, Mississippi, and then spent his adult years in Mobile, Alabama. And he got to drinking one night. Well, many nights, but on this particular night, there was a group of us that were at a restaurant from work, and he got to drinking, and he was talking about float trips or something. And he said, "My favorite thing to have out on a float trip is a Bud Slut 55." And we all stopped and looked at each other, and we're like, "What did he just say?" And it was like, and we asked him to repeat it, and he was like, "Bud Slut 55." And I finally, the gears turned in my head, and I was like, "Say that real slowly." And he was like, "Bud Select 55." And I was like, "Okay, well, that makes sense now."
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Oh, you haven't? No, I've had it before.
No, I haven't seen a 55 before.
It is. Steven's right. It's like twice the water is Bud Select.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like Bud Select's 99 calories, something like that. And
99, yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost half the calories.
Right here.
Right. I get where the guys coming from. Float trips and stuff like that. I mean, it's like you don't want a heavy beer.
Combo.
Yeah, you don't want a heavy beer. It's gotta be a light.
I really thought he said Bud Slut. So
Bud Slut.
I think we
Bud
all did.
Slut 55.
Now that.
Hey, we got the name of the next podcast, Steve.
Yeah, Bud Slut 55. Write that down for the next intro. Nice.
Oh my. All right, guys, we've got a couple news items we want to get to before we get to our reveals. First of all, Stanley Cup Final. I don't know how much you guys have watched. I've watched pretty much every second. I missed a little bit on Saturday because I was also watching the City game, which, by the way, rough loss tonight. I don't know if you guys saw that, but
oh no, I was recording it. Thanks.
Were you?
Yeah. Well,
sorry.
It's not believe
you've already seen half the game, so don't worry about it.
I have.
Yeah, because it's just it starts at the 50-minute mark for the game that got postponed.
Oh, gotcha.
So yeah, I mean, and by the way, longest game ever. It feels like it took like a month for them to finish that game.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's a bad joke. Anyway, so talking about the Stanley Cup Final, and sorry, Kurt, that I ruined the game for you.
It's okay. You should know better.
Don't do a live show. Come on.
This is a hockey show.
Vegas Golden Knights have a 2-0 lead. Alex Pietrangelo and Ivan Barbashev are 2 wins away from winning another Stanley Cup, this time in an enemy of St. Louis. At least I consider it that way. Florida is just getting shit kicked, as I like to say. So, Steven, have you watched much of this series? Any thoughts on what you've seen from the first 2 games?
I've watched a little. I've kind of jumped more and more on the Panthers bandwagon as the playoffs have gone along. Being down here doesn't hurt. Um, I weirdly think that Florida still has a shot here to bounce back, and I mean, obviously they do because it's only 2 losses. But I think when we look at the long layoff they had, I think losing game one was almost a guarantee, and then game two win against them. But I think if Bobrovsky can get his legs under him a little bit, and they can just find a win in game three, they're right back in it. I know that's like the most corny, predictable hockey commentary of all time, but there you go. You get what you pay for, Jeff. So
that's right. Yeah, and we're paying you the big bucks of a little bit of zero there. Right. So I'll agree with you, and I'll say I'll elaborate a little more on what you're saying, because I know this is what you're thinking, Steven. I think if the Panthers score, just kick the shit out of the Golden Knights in game three, let's just say, like, basically same score, let's say, as what was in game two. So 7-2, 7-3, somewhere in that realm. I think that's a bad sign, because I think that pisses off the Golden Knights.
Yeah.
And they come back out in game four, and all of a sudden they got a 3-1 lead. I think best case scenario for Florida, this game goes to overtime in game three, and Florida takes it. I think that emotionally lifts them higher than a shit-kicking game. And I also think it sends back Vegas a little bit to say, oh, shit, like, we should have won that. We could be up 3-0. We lost. Now we have to win game four. Pressure's all on them. So I would love to see Florida, and maybe it doesn't have to be overtime, but maybe very end of the third period, score the game-winning goal. I think that could be something that uplifts them to tie the series after game four.
I don't, with both games being in Vegas so far, being down 2-0, mindset of a team that opens the series, any series on the road, it's like win your home games and steal one on the road. So if they win their home games and take one of the final two in Vegas, then that's their game plan, right? So they're going home, and they just got to hold serve at home. And I guess I'd be inclined to agree with you, Jeff. An overtime win, exciting. The way you win the game, you're riding a high. There's always a danger of a letdown too, after you win an emotional game. So we'll see. I mean, game three, obviously huge. If Vegas wins it, then the series is almost over, essentially. And if Florida wins it, then they're right back in it. So it's massive game.
Yeah. I mean, you can't say. I always think it's ridiculous. People say, "Oh, game three is a must win." It's not a must win. It's a huge. You need to try your best to win this one. It's a huge win for them if they can get it.
Also, I mean, this is the same team that came back from down 3-1 against Boston, which everybody said was impossible. So this certainly isn't impossible, and obviously I agree. I mean, as close as must win as you can get, I think game three is pretty far up there.
Which I think I'm going to end up buying a Florida Panthers hat when I can to celebrate the first round ouster of the Bruins.
Worth it.
Yeah. 100%.
I should do that.
Anyone but Boston.
Whoever eliminates Boston, I'll buy a hat of that team every year.
That's good. Yeah. You know what? I keep saying that I want to get at least a hat from every team except Detroit. And that's a good way to do it. Just pick two teams from each conference and say, I'll buy a hat from the team that beats this team. Kicks them out of the playoffs, right? Yeah, that's a good idea. I like it. Boston and Colorado. That feels good.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So big news for Blues fans. Not happy news for most of Blues fans. Darren Pang. It was announced today. Sources claim, I don't think it's official, but it's going to happen. Darren Pang is out as a Blues broadcaster. So he spent 14 seasons with the Blues, joined the Blues in 2009. He is going to continue his time working with TNT. So he is going to the Chicago Blackhawks, which is the team he played for, the only team he played for in the NHL. Of course, Blackhawks are getting all the love this summer because, they totally deserve it as an organization. getting Connor Bedard, like the rights to draft Connor Bedard, and now Darren Payne goes there. Blues fans are devastated. I want both of you to reach to comment on this, but I'll just say, as a person, Darren Payne, you can't beat him. He's a wonderful advocate for the sport. Has been a great hockey ambassador for the city of St. Louis. He's been beloved for his whole time here. And again, you've ever met the guy, you find out how quickly of a nice a guy he is and how much he loves the game and how much he knows the game. To be honest, in all the years of listening to him, even before a Blues broadcaster, I learned more just from listening to him sit around and talk to people off camera. There was I think I've told the story in the show before, but there was the UHL, the River Otters used to play in that league. They had the All-Star game here once, and they brought back a bunch of people who played in the UHL, and Darren Payne was one of them. This was before he was a Blues broadcaster. He sat down with me and a bunch of my friends and talked with us for about 20 minutes after the game. And just hearing his stories and his analysis of the game, I'm like, holy shit, this guy knows everything there is to know about hockey. And I'll say, and again, I want to get your guys' feedback on this too. I've actually never been a huge fan of his on the TV. I think he's a little bit of a homer. I think he's a little too excitable. To be honest, again, getting to know him off the rink, I love his sense of humor. His sense of humor didn't translate well for me to TV, and I'm not just ragging on the guy. I'm just giving my opinion. So yeah, I'm not that upset about this. I'm okay with it. We'll talk about the implications this might mean for Blues coverage, who might take his role in a minute, but your guys' thoughts on Darren Payne leaving as a Blues broadcaster. We'll start with Steven.
I would say I guess I'm more disappointed than you are. I think he's been just kind of I guess he's been there, most of the time that I've really been super active as a fan and following the team. And, I would say as much as JK feels like the voice of the team to me. And I agree that sometimes his commentary gets a little awkward or a little over exuberant, but sometimes that can be fun too, and I agree on the Homer stuff. I guess I don't care as much if it's a regional, like if it's a home team broadcast, so there are times when he doesn't criticize the team enough when they're being, terrible. That's probably my biggest pet peeve with him is when he looks for a positive in like a 6-0 loss. But yeah, I mean, I think it is a bummer. I think especially just the way last season went, Chicago getting the draft lottery. It's just been a couple of gut punches in a row for the Blues and Blues fans. So I understand why people are upset, but I agree with your tweet earlier. Like, this is not the most important part of the team that we really, really need to care about. So yeah.
Well, Kurt, I know your thoughts already a little bit because obviously we've talked about it, but like one of the things that you actually sent me earlier was somebody saying something on the lines of, this is the biggest loss since Petro. And I'm just like, it's a fucking broadcaster, man. We're not losing Jack Buck. We're not losing Vin Scully. Get over it.
There was a comment on Reddit, on the St. Louis Blues Reddit, that said, I don't think I'm exaggerating here when I say that this is the greatest travesty to ever happen to the Blues organization. and I said, and I was like, what? Bob Gassoff literally died on a team outing. Kiprios dove on Fuhr's knee. Pronger was traded for scrap.
Yzerman.
We lost 5 draft picks for tampering. We had our captain stripped from us by a judge. When the team almost moved to Saskatoon, the team, Ralston Purina locked the doors to the arena, or the Checker Dome, didn't send anyone to the draft. We drafted nobody that year. We went 52 years without a cup. There have been a lot of shitty things that have happened to this organization along the way. Losing a color commentator is nowhere near the top of any of this stuff.
And I think you'll agree, Kurt, when I say this. He's not even the best color commentator we've lost.
Joe Micheletti.
Joe Micheletti.
Yeah. I was really sad to see him go. That was disappointing. But he went to New York, and I was like, well, okay, I'm going to go to big market. I get it. But I really enjoyed him. I thought he was I thought he was extremely fair, well-spoken, and just really good behind the mic. I'll echo the sentiments with not, a little eye rolling with Darren Pang and his over the top being a homer. But I understand, like you said, Stephen, that it's a regional broadcast and there is a certain level of homerism expected because it's mostly one team's fan base watching you. So you're playing to them. I get it. Mm-hmm. But still, when you're looking for honest analysis in a color analyst, and you're looking at one thing on a replay, right? And he's just searching for something else. And one of my favorite lines of his that always made me roll my eyes is like, well, what's Parayko supposed to do there in that situation? I'm like, not high stick the guy? I don't know. Not clear it over the glass? I don't know. That kind of a thing. But I actually have a couple of Darren Pang stories, but one of them goes back to when before the podcast, when I was running letsgoblues.com. Well, I still am, but back in the letsgoblues.com days, we were still on the press release list for Fox Sports Midwest, and we got the notification along with the rest of the media about Darren Pang coming here. But it wasn't really about, it just showed a list of all of the team's broadcasters, radio, television, and color analysts. And I looked at the Blues, and Darren Pang was on there, and nothing else was said. I'm like, Darren Pang? What the hell is he on? I'm like, did we get Darren Pang? So that was kind of cool. I don't know, in a way, to see that we got Darren Pang before it was like announced the day after, the next day. But and also that time I've talked about in the show where he when the Nathan Walker incident, Jeff, when he interviewed Nathan Walker had, what was it, a hat trick or something in a game, or had 2 goals, whatever it was.
I think it was just he scored in his debut for the Blues.
It might have been, and he was one of the stars of the game, and he interviewed him after the game, and he asked him if he was going to celebrate with a Foster's Lager, since he's from Australia, and that's where that beer is based. And there were some Foster's Lager comments, during the show and stuff during the game, and I think I said on Twitter something about it. I raised the question, I'm like, is that insensitive? I mean, just because because I think somebody else said, yeah, it might be, because what if he was Mexican and you asked him if he was going to celebrate with tacos after the game? That would be kind of like, oh, that's inappropriate, right? It just the way that things are now. And I said, is that inappropriate, or is that reaching for something? And somebody said, yes, it was lazy, and a lazy comment. And I said, yeah, I kind of agree with it being lazy. And he texted me. Got my number from Chris Kerber, and he he kind of went off me a little bit and said, I'm not a lazy analyst. I come to the rink early. I talk with the team, I do this and that. And I was like, I'm not questioning your work ethic at all. I just thought that one particular comment, I don't know. I apologize. I was like, you know what? It was a reaching thing anyway. So yeah, I didn't mean much by it, but
right.
So that was kind of funny.
And again, I'll say, like you mentioned, his work ethic, like from what I've heard and what I've seen,
yeah,
he is a very hardworking analyst. And I'll say, like, again, I respect the hell out of Darren Pang. I just don't like his style personally.
He was making a joke.
Crappy goalie once said to me, because I got in this debate with him, I mean, probably 10 years ago now. Crappy goalie, friend of the show. He made a comment why he loves Darren Pang. And I was like, why do you love Darren Pang so much? Because he's very bummed about this, by the way. And he's like,
is it because Darren Pang was also a crappy goalie?
That's true. Damn. Why have I not thought of that?
I don't know. That's what I'm here for.
No, I
does he like Hannu Toivonen too?
Right. Oh, bag of crap is Hannu Toivonen. That's from Carl something on the letsgoblues.com forum.
Carl Lindbaum. It's Carl Lindbaum.
No, it wasn't Carl Lindbaum's Carl Lipbaum. It was Somebody who had the first name of Carl on letsgoblues.com forums. Anyway, we're getting off on crazy tangents here.
Yeah.
Circling it back in, I asked Crappy Goalie why he liked Darren Pang so much. And he said, because he's like a fan. He's like one of us in there. And my response was, I don't want a fan in the booth. I want somebody who can maybe explain something that even I don't understand as somebody who watches hockey religiously. Like, I want somebody smarter than me in there. And I'm not saying Darren Pang isn't. He is. But he doesn't, to me, show that in his broadcast. I think he does that a lot more for TNT. Which is great.
I think with TNT, there's no homer. He's impartial, right? Supposed to be. So I actually really enjoy his TNT color analyst work.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Yes. I enjoy his work on TNT more than his work with the Blues, just because I think you get a much more honest Darren Pang, and I appreciate that out of him. So I think he'll be great. He's still going to be on TNT. So that's pretty much all we'll see of him, unless I tune into some Blackhawks games next season. So it's fine.
Their broadcast was awful this last year. They cycled through people. There was no consistency, the product on the ice was just crap.
Oh, what's his name? The in-studio guy who the former goalie.
Oh, the goalie. Scott Darling.
Scott Darling.
Yeah.
who just totally dissed St. Louis. That was
I'm
funny.
fairly certain he's gone. I don't think we'll see him in broadcasting
Well,
again.
he should have been gone for wearing that great grandma shawl thing he wore when he made that comment. What the hell?
But no, I think he will bring some consistency. I can't remember the name of their color guy, or I'm sorry, their play-by-play guy. And he's, dude, let's face it, he's going to be so happy in Chicago. He's going to be welcomed back with open arms. Sure. He will always be just like Joe Micheletti. And obviously Micheletti played here, but just like Micheletti, he'll always be in Blues lore. He was I don't want to say he was involved, but he was here during the Cup win. So I have no qualms with Darren Pang as a person. And I just don't like his style. I get why people do. It's just not for me.
14 years here. That's a long time.
That's great.
Maybe it's time to move on to somebody else. I don't like who they're probably going to replace him with, but
yeah, let's talk about that. So do you think it's a shoo-in? It's going to be Rivers?
I think he has to be a leading candidate. Maybe they won't go with him. Who knows? But sometimes I really like Rivers' perspective. Sometimes I don't. He's really hit or miss with me. I like it when he pulls up the TV, the telestrator thing, and he's breaking down plays and stuff. I think what I like about Rivers is I love how he'll break down plays since he's a former player. He's got the insight. I love his locker room stories, things that happen in the locker room, how players act in the locker room, what goes on. He'll share that a little more of that stuff like on 101 ESPN radio. But so I like that aspect. That's stuff you don't get from regular the broadcasters that host these shows on because they never played the game. But then again, you get stuff with Rivers. Just something about him. I was like, there's got to be somebody better, right?
Well, it's also broadcast. That a lot of the insight he brings is old school insight. Like he would say, like his insight a lot of times is, well, this guy comes in on the wall. Now, in my day, we would crunch him up against the wall and we'd steal the puck and go. And it's like, that's not insight for today's game, bud. That's not how it works anymore.
That was big. That was him and Kimball were big on back in my day on the podcast.
I did see a Reddit comment that was hilarious. That was like, you know what? At this point, if you're going to have Rivers, just bring in Darren Kimball as a third and have them just whine about how bad the game is now.
I can't. Darren Kimball would be the worst guy to bring in.
I would. That is actually a situation where I would just be like, I'm not going to have it with audio on.
That's a great point. Because there are a lot of people saying I'm not going to watch the games anymore because Pang's not on the TV, which is ridiculous. Or I'm not going to, I know. But man, if Kimball was on there, I'm like, oh my God, I would really not like the broadcast at all. I'll try and sync up my radio with the TV so I can.
Steven, have you ever been to DarrenKimball.com?
I can't say that I have.
His name is spelled, I believe, with what? Is it 1 R?
2 R's, isn't it? Let me see.
Or is it 1? I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
Maybe it is 2. I don't know. Look up how to spell his name and then
Darren.
Is that right? I mean, where is our producer?
It's DARRIN.
Oh, it's 1 R. It's 1 R. Yeah. Yeah. So if you go to DarrenKimball.com, you'll have a nice little surprise.
Oh, you're right. Sorry.
Look at that. Beautiful. I was very terrified for what I was going to find out. But...
The man who has a podcast named after pornography was terrified to go to a website.
That's right.
Oh, good stuff. No, I will say, and the problem is, and let's face it, the overlying problem with Darren Payne not coming back has to at least have something to do with the Diamond Sports Group being in bankruptcy right now. So they are, they're going to be looking for a cheap alternative. To me, that means Jamie Rivers, because you just give him a little bit of a pay bump and you're going to say you're going to travel with the team more. And I think that, because he's already on payroll, I think that's what's going to happen. It's unfortunate. I don't hate Rivers either as a broadcaster, but I just want them to do their due diligence and at least interview other candidates and say, let's find the best option for Blues fans. And as I told you, Kurt, earlier before the show, I think you get John Kelly involved and you say, hey, sit down, let's roll through some game clips. You call the play, and then we'll cut it to the color guy. Like, actually see if there's going to be some chemistry with somebody else. Like, just do the work. Don't just say the cheapest is this guy. Let's go with this.
Would you guys rather have John Kelly or Chris Kerber on the TV broadcast?
Steven?
It's a tough question. I mean, I think Kerber does such a great job of describing it for a radio broadcast, with the depth and detail that you need to do that. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously they translate to probably at least 80%, but I'm not sure it's a 1-for-1 translation calling the games. I think I prefer Kerber, overall a little bit, but I like them both pretty well. So hard to say.
Yeah. I think I prefer Kerber on the calls. So I guess I'd say Kerber for TV, but then again, at the same time, I do like when I have a late hockey game or whatever, and I'm coming home and the Blues are playing, and I get to turn on and listen to Kerber on the radio. That's always a nice little treat.
Well, Kerber did a couple games last year on TV.
Yeah, that's true. Kerber also has a bit of that homerism in him as well.
Sure.
Especially on Twitter. He gets hard on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Not just about hockey either. He's got opinions.
Yeah,
he is an opinionated fella.
No, I like Kerber.
I walked into Deerberg's once early in COVID, and I walked in behind a guy, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's Chris Kerber, but we were all wearing our masks, so I couldn't totally see him. And I just, how you pass people a couple of times in the aisles. And I was like, I think that's him, but I don't know. And then finally, he walked past me and he answered a phone. And the minute I heard his voice, I was like, it's Chris Kerber.
That's him.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain in early 2021 I saw Nikki Glazer, but we were all wearing masks. Her parents lived in Kirkwood, and I know during the lockdown she stayed with them. Yeah. What's that?
She got stuck there basically.
She got stuck in Kirkwood with her parents, and I was at the Crestwood Schnucks, and I looked over and I saw her, and I'm like, God, that looks like Nikki Glazer. And then I heard her talk to somebody, and I'm like, I'm 90% sure that's her, but I really don't want to be that creepy guy that's like, hey, so I saw you from behind, and I thought, oh, you look like Nikki Glazer.
Did you ever watch her show? The show that she made in St. Louis here? It just
not.
No? It's on E, I think. And it was filmed here. It's based here. While she's staying here with her parents or near her parents. Nikki Glazer show or something like that.
I'll check
Yeah.
that out. I didn't know that.
You'll see spots around town where she films stuff and everything. It's
Okay.
a reality type show, you know.
Yeah. Well, fellas, I think we're going to go ahead and move to our commercial, because here in a little bit, we are going to be talking about our first reveal of left wings for the all-time Blues team. We'll do the first two, and we'll do the next two next week. You are listening to Jeff, Kurt, and Steven on Let's Go Blues Radio.
We'll return after these messages.
Every beer league hockey night, I grab my hockey bag and sticks and throw them in the trunk of my car. And the very next thing I do, I mix up a boost of energy courtesy of RockinThatIDLife.com. It's formulated to break up its delivery in 3 ways, which helps me get through all 3 periods of hockey. Phase 1 provides a rapid onset of energy, concentration, alertness, and motivation. By period 2, I'm receiving a dose of sustained energy, increased focus, metabolism, cognitive function, performance, and feelings of well-being, which I need with the way I play. In Phase 3, I'm getting fatigue protection without jitters and crash, an elevated mood, and a reduction of fluid retention to help me make the big play when it counts. This same triphasic approach helps me when I drink it during work hours or simply just for a pick-me-up when I need it. Try one of the 4 energy flavors by visiting RockinThatIDLife.com, but make sure to email Dustin at RockinThatIDLife@gmail.com and tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you to receive an additional 10% off your order. That's RockinThatIDLife.com.
Center Ice Brewery is a beer lover's dream for hockey fans. Based in St. Louis, Missouri, owner Steve Albers has been brewing hockey-themed favorites for thirsty sports fans since 2017. From the Beauty IPA to the Old Arena Lager, a cold, frosty, hockey-themed beer is just what the doctor ordered for hockey fans in St. Louis. Make sure to check your local beer store for Center Ice Brewery beer today. LGB. Let's go beer.
During the magical 2019 playoff run, I was in the midst of buying my current home. Every time I spoke with my realtor, obviously, home buying was the discussion. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't stop thinking about what was destined to happen for our St. Louis hockey team. If only there were a realtor who could have walked me through the process, held my hand when needed, but was there to be a sounding board when I wanted to complain about a certain hand pass goal. Let realtor Mike Burgoyne with Real Brokerage be that for you. He'll have your needs top of mind as he skates you through the home buying or selling process, dangling you past any obstacles and assisting on all your home goals. Check out strikewithmike.com for more information or give him a call directly at 314-753-4060. That's Mike Burgoyne with Real Brokerage at strikewithmike.com, and that number again is 314-753-4060. Don't forget to tell Mike that Let's Go Blues Radio sent you.
And now, back to Let's Go Blues Radio, the longest running St. Louis Blues podcast with Price, Ponder, and Day.
So coming out of break, we got a good question here. I have no idea. Nathan Moyers on a Facebook chat says, can Bally's hire any new on-air personnel given the bankruptcy filings? That's a great question. I'm not a lawyer. Any lawyers listening, please tune in.
Good question. I don't know. I'm going to say yes.
I would assume they have to be able to fill vacancies to keep the company running.
Right.
And you got to wonder if like the NHL can step in and be like, yeah, we'll back this. I don't know. You got to think there's something that can be done.
That is one thing that I didn't say about it earlier that I think is, a factor in this is the NHL sitting on the sidelines, not what they're paying specifically because, who cares? But like just the whole fact that probably a third or more of the NHL's broadcasts are on this network that is now defunct or going to be defunct. And like, doesn't seem like the NHL has a plan or knows what's going on particularly. It's just,
I mean, you guys saw what
feels very typical NHL to me.
Is it the Padres that are, or the Pirates? Who is it that's actually the league is taking over the broadcast because of Bally Sports? Yeah, you got to think with the NHL in its off season, that has got to be a number one priority right now, right? Like, what do we do? What is the plan going into next season?
Yeah, I mean, you almost think they have to communicate and get ESPN to like unblacklist some of those things. Well, they're doing the blacklisting. It's not ESPN, so maybe they'll have to be mature for once and let people watch their preferred teams wherever they are.
The blackout thing is such an antiquated, outdated mess.
Well, it's like it became dramatically easier for me to watch St. Louis sports when I moved down here to Jacksonville.
Oh yeah,
I just had to get ESPN Plus and get MLB TV, and that's it. And then I have both teams and all the games. So
when I lived in Dallas, that was me. I was like, hey, the best part about this is it is so easy, because I think at the time Sling was huge. I'm like, it is just so easy to just get whatever the hell I want and be able to watch all my St. Louis teams, no issues.
Yeah, it's embarrassing for the hockey in particular. I think that's still a problem.
Now, the Yankees, for example, they have their own broadcasting network, right? The Yankees Entertainment Sports, the YES network. Now the Blues obviously aren't big enough to maybe pull that off or even want to do that, make that profitable. But the Cardinals could do that.
I feel like the Cardinals could do it.
They could
do it even more if they had the Blues as part of it.
That's right. I mean, they could go in as a team, and have, I don't know, 2 stations. Like Bally's has the Bally's and Bally's Sports Extra, whatever it is, Bally's Midwest Extra, or Bally's 1 and 2, or just call it whatever, and just 2 stations for, when there's overlap, one team goes to the other one or whatever. It seems like
maybe they strike a deal where they say, if the Cardinals and Blues are playing at the same time, Cardinals will always be on the Cardinals network, but they strike a deal maybe with CW11 and are like KPLR or whoever and say, hey, if we have 2 games at the same time, we'll give you the rights to the Blues coverage.
Well, that wouldn't work for me because I don't get Channel 11. So let's not do that.
Channel 5.
That would require someone in the Cardinals organization to have a forward-thinking thought, though, and so that seems like
that's a great point.
with how easy it is to stream everything nowadays, I don't know if people are making this harder than it needs to be.
I think they are.
It just seems like
you look at what MLS did. I mean, Apple paid boatloads for the MLS deal, and they just have everything. But now that Messi's coming, they've got to be just absolutely jumping for joy, because they're pretty much already paid for their deal themselves.
I wonder how many people subscribe to Apple TV for MLS. Like have an MLS package.
Well, I mean, you got to figure they've got the numbers. They just probably haven't released them.
Well, I know. Because I say most people don't have it. I'm guessing. Apple TV, but
I think that's the wisdom of making it the only place you can get that. I mean, if that's your sport, then
sure, you know where it is.
You can find it.
Yeah. Yep. And every game's on. There's no blackouts. You can watch any game you want.
That to me is the model. Back. That is the model that we should have. If the NHL was just like, hey, no blackouts, nothing. Even the nationally picked up broadcasts like TNT, ESPN, no blackouts. You can watch all the teams you want. Honestly, if it was $400 a season, I'd pay it. I'd be like, okay, like I get to watch hockey whenever the fuck I want. Okay, sure. You got it.
I mean,
no blackouts.
Well, I mean, we have that now. Well, with Bally's and with ESPN Plus, you can watch any game you want. Because the local games, they're not blacked out on Bally's, obviously.
But what I'm saying is, you give me one app that has everything.
I agree.
That's all I want.
I agree, but I see you said you spend $400 on it, but you don't have to spend quite that much to get the way it is now. But
I know. But what I'm saying is, if you have one hub, no hoops to jump through, it's like. The Blues play at 7:00. I know exactly where to go. I don't have to look up what network it's on. I don't have to nothing. Just go to the app. Boom. I'm watching the game. That's what I want.
No, and keeping it simple is probably the way to go. Have you have Apple? Well, okay, Apple TV. Have you tried to watch any of a soccer game that's like a couple days old, and trying to find where to watch an archived game?
So
It
the
is
one time that
almost
we did that,
impossible. It's
the one time we did
buried.
that, all we did was we just typed in search. We just typed in MLS St. Louis City and it came up. So
If you go to like the team, like you can select all the different teams, and you go to the team. Say you want to watch one of the city's games, you go to the city's page where it shows all the videos and stuff for city archived games. Good luck. You got to go way down past all the highlight videos, and seeing all those other videos can ruin the outcome of a game for you, right? Just seeing like the little stills. So it's
let me ask you, because this is a debate with my wife and I. I work in this kind of field, so in a way with websites. So I have a way that I know that is tried and true for me, but some people work in different ways. I always use search. Always search. It's always, I know what I want. I know the keywords I need to type in. So any app I'm on, if it's Netflix, Hulu, I just instantly go to search, type it in. Do you guys do that? Or do you like go through the menus and try to find what you want through the menus?
Well, when you type
Does
in,
it
say,
differ?
St. Louis City, what do you get? You probably get all kinds of stuff like highlight videos, games, all kinds of stuff.
So
right?
the game that I was looking for, I remember who they played. Let's say it was Houston. I just typed in MLS St. Louis City, Houston, and that game popped right up.
That's different. Yeah. But I'm just saying that it's easy to click on. I don't have to type in anything. You know, the game is right down there at the bottom. So okay, just go down, click on city, and the city's page comes up. All the video highlights are on, but you would think that the last game they played will be right there ready to go. I have scores turned off, so I don't see the scores. I'm trying to play a game I haven't watched yet. But you have to scroll down way to the bottom, and it's buried like a few clicks deep, just their last game that was played. I'm just saying that's the way you do it is probably a lot better, but it should not. That game, which is probably what most people will be looking for, is buried a couple clicks deep. You can't even find it.
Kurt, you ready for salesman Jeff? Here we go. Ready for this? So what you're saying, Kurt, is you want this to be like the Let's Go Blues Radio YouTube page. So if you miss a show, it's right there, the most recent episode.
You would think the most recent game would be right there at the top to watch. That's just,
you would think.
That's just me, and it's not.
Yep.
So,
all right, let's get into it, boys. So we've got left wing. You know, remember, again, we're only revealing the first two left wings. So your first line left wing, your second line left wing. We'll reveal 3 and 4 next week. But as a reminder, the Blues released that over my shoulder there. They released that 35th anniversary team. On that team, and this goes in order, this was who they selected. Brian Sutter, Brendan Shanahan, Keith Tkachuk, and Pavel Demitra. At the time, Tkachuk and Demitra were on the roster. So little recency bias maybe there. I don't know. So the question is, Brian Sutter, Brendan Shanahan were 1 and 2, Tkachuk and Demitra 3 and 4. Did any of those guys make it to the 1 or 2 spot here for left wing? Well, folks, here we go. Reveal number 1. Your first line left wing on the St. Louis Blues all-time team. It is not Brian Sutter. It is not Brendan Shanahan. It is Keith Tkachuk. Keith Tkachuk has leapfrogged those two players, as well as anyone else that you might have thought would be involved in the all-time team. So let's run through some things real quick with Keith Tkachuk. He had 5 all-star games in his career, 2 with the Blues. He played with the Jets and Coyotes organization, as well as the Blues and Atlanta Thrashers. Let's not forget that. Best season as a Blue came in 2001-2002. That was his first full season as a Blue. 73 games played, 38 goals, 37 assists, 75 points. Stats with the Blues, he is number 6 in goals all time with 208. Number 4 in power play goals with 96. Tied for number 7 in game-winning goals with 29. And he's number 20 in games played with 543. So Keith Tkachuk, a guy who is pretty synonymous with St. Louis at this point. We talked about Bobby Plager a couple weeks ago, kind of being Mr. Blue. Not saying Keith Tkachuk's anywhere near that status, but he is a St. Louis, and him and his beautiful wife, Chantal, still live here in St. Louis. Obviously, 2 boys still in the NHL. 1 currently in the Stanley Cup Final in Matthew. But Keith Tkachuk is your number one left wing. Kurt, are you surprised by that?
Yes.
Me too.
Very much so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would have and did have someone else here. But I get it. You know, he was here not that long ago. His sons are still playing. Spent a long time here. Still lives in St. Louis. So there's all that. And he had a great Blues career. I'm not doubting that, but at number one, I was shocked. Do I get to say who I had here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had Shanahan as number one. Tkachuk played twice as many games for the Blues, but I thought during his time here, I thought Shanahan was a more effective left wing, a better left wing than Tkachuk was, even though Tkachuk has the numbers, due to longevity. So I think I think Tkachuk was in my top four, but I would have had Shanahan as number one.
So I have to get to divide by zeros. You know what? I'm going to give him comment of the show. He says, yeah, no. Keith was great for trading. He was a good left wing, but he couldn't touch Brendan Shanahan or Brian Sutter. I again, and Steven, I want to get to you too. But I was shocked by this as well. When the poll started, because let's see, he was in the poll that had. Sorry, 1 second. Again, this is why we need a producer. He was in the poll that had Brian Sutter, Brendan Shanahan, and Jorgen Pettersson as well. So the fact that he won that poll shocked the hell out of me. I thought it was going to be a dead heat between Sutter and Shanahan. Now they finished well, don't get me wrong, but the fact that Tkachuk pulled into the lead pretty early and held on to it, that surprised the hell out of me. I thought, man, Tkachuk, yeah, he belongs on this team. Sure, all these guys do. But him at number one, woo! That's
Do you remember?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, real quick. Do you remember when Tkachuk high stick Shanahan? Shanahan was on the Blues. Tkachuk was with Phoenix.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And so Tkachuk high stick Shanahan pretty good. Shanahan went in the locker room, got all mended up.
He was
stitched
a
up.
jet at the point, right?
A jet. Yeah.
And
Shanahan came back out there, scored the game-winning goal, and then beat the shit out of Tkachuk.
Yep.
So I think based on that tiny little sample size alone, I'm like, that's my nugget for
because of that,
Shanahan
Brendan Shanahan beat Keith Tkachuk's ass. Shanahan now takes number one. Sorry, Keith, you're out. Steven, your thoughts on Shanahan as the number one?
Tkachuk is the number one.
Tkachuk.
I'm sorry, Tkachuk. I talked myself into it.
The argument was so convincing.
Yeah, I'm as surprised as both you guys are. It's, I was really surprised when you said it, and then the more I look at these names, there are legitimately 6 guys here that you could argue, number one, or at least to have a case for it. So, it's not like we're trying to drag Keith Tkachuk. He's a U.S. Hockey Hall of Famer. He had a phenomenal Blues career and an even better, league-wide career. But I definitely think this is some extreme recency bias going on, some visibility bias, probably the fact that these polls went up as his son was dominating the Bruins and or Maple Leafs, and making a Conn Smythe case for himself didn't hurt. I think he was a phenomenal player, but he didn't play, during the height of the Blues' success either a lot. And, I think probably deserves to be top 4. I didn't have him at number 1 either, but I did have him top 4. So I guess I'm not surprised that he makes the team, but definitely surprised that he took the number 1 spot.
So let's go ahead and just say that. So let's see. Steven, your number 1 was actually Alexander Steen. Kurt, yours was Brendan Shanahan, and mine was Brian Sutter. So we all differed there. And again, none of us had Tkachuk. And so when it comes to the rankings, only one person had Tkachuk as number 1. So again, we talk about how this panel selected who belongs here and then where they slotted in, yet it is 100% the Twitter poll that anointed him as number one, because none of us had him there at that point except one person on the panel. So I do want to say it sounds like we're talking negative about Keith Tkachuk. I don't think any of us are. Let's talk about him as a Blue. I'll say that is one memory that I have that will stick with me forever. I remember it was 2001. Kurt, sorry, and Steven, you're young, so I don't have to apologize to you. I'm going to make you feel old. I was a sophomore in high school, and I remember just walking down the aisle, and somebody grabbed me and going, "The Blues got Keith Tkachuk," and I'm like, "Okay, guy," and he's like, "No, look, my dad just texted me. This is before we had phone on our internet. I'm internet on our phone." And he's like, "No, my dad just texted me. It's real. They just traded him for Jeff Tafe and Michael Hanzus and whoever else was involved in that trade." And I'm like, "Oh my God." And I remember just running down the hall and going, "The Blues got Tkachuk." And like half the people in the hallway are like, "What the fuck is up with this guy?" And then I remember my math teacher, who was a Marine, and he was actually our hockey coach too. And I remember him grabbing me by the arm, going, "What did you just say?" And I was like, "Oh shit, this guy's about to kick my ass." I'm like, "The Blues got Tkachuk?" And he's like, "Fucking right they did." He gave me a high five, and I'm like, "Yes!" Like, it was such because to me, they had just gotten Scott Mellenby right before that. I want to say it was about a week before, Kurt. I don't know if your memory serves you as well, but I want to say it was like a week, 2 weeks, something like that. So it was like, they're all in. They're going to win the cup. I will say, I think if any team challenges that 2019 Blues team, it's that 2001 team. I think they had everything they needed to win a Stanley Cup. Their goalie just fell apart in the third round.
Yep, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think he's definitely a player that made an immediate impact with the team. Huge acquisition. I think, very memorable for his size, his style of play, and I think he played that power forward role that almost doesn't exist as much in the NHL anymore, and it kind of to me, the prototype of that role is you think of a guy like Keith Tkachuk when you think of that player. So definitely very much deserves to be recognized as one of the all-time greats with the Blues. Has his number semi-retired with the number 7 thing that they did. I don't even know if it's technically retired, but they
honored, I guess, in some way.
Yeah, it's honored.
Yeah, but certainly a great player, and has had an enduring impact on the team. He's done things like been basically a billet father to Robert Thomas in his first season here, and probably other players that we don't talk as much about, and obviously has the kids as well, and has a big part of the hockey community here. Hopefully we'll convince the kids to come home at some point. We may have missed out on Matthew, but Brady's gonna not want to be a senator eventually, so hopefully that time will come around. But certainly a great player. Definitely mean no disrespect by expressing surprise at his number 1 ranking, because he deserves a lot of respect and kudos from Blues fans.
I mean, let's put it like this: he'd be number 1 all time for the Atlanta Thrashers, right?
There you go. That's right.
I think that belongs to Ilya Kovalchuk, to be honest. But
yeah, is he left or right? That was what I was going to ask.
There's nothing wrong with finishing number 2 or 3. I mean,
yeah,
there's no shame in that.
Maybe on the Thrashers. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Glenn Metropolitan makes their all-time team.
Wow.
So, okay. Speaking of Glenn Metropolitan, we did a little research earlier, and I closed it. Damn it. We looked up the trade, who the Blues got for Tkachuk when they traded him to Atlanta. You have it? All right, so go ahead.
The Blues got Metropolitan, 2007 first-round pick, Michael Backlund. 2007 third-round pick, which was Brett Sohn. 2008 second-round pick, which was Philip McRae. And 2008 conditional first-round pick if the Thrashers re-signed Tkachuk for the 07-08 season, which they did not. So that was not.
So, first of all, the Blues got a player in there that became a friend of the show in Phil McRae.
Oh,
Second
yeah.
of all, yeah, Phil,
That's
good
right.
dude, still lives in St. Louis. So, obviously from St. Louis as well. Well, was he born here? I can't remember. Was
I think he
Basil?
was.
Yeah. Excuse me. Anyway, so we figured that out, and we said, well, Mikael Backlund, Blues ended up they didn't make that pick. They ended up trading. Steven looked it up. It was they traded him to Calgary, right? And one of those picks they got in return was Ian Cole.
That's right.
Ian Cole gets traded later as a Blue for Robert Bertuzzo. Robert Bertuzzo kicks the shit out of Zach Sanford in practice, and the Blues win the Stanley Cup. So thank you, Keith Tkachuk, for that big trade to Atlanta. You brought us a cup. That's the way I see it.
The 6 degrees of Keith Tkachuk, I guess, or
That's right.
separation, whatever it is called. Phil McRae, born in Chesterfield, Missouri.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll say U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, absolutely. I think he was inducted in 2011. Could be wrong on that. Good for him. Great player, one of the best U.S.-born players of all time. I have to ask the question. I think we've already talked about it on the show before. Is he an NHL Hall of Famer?
Phil McRae?
No. No, Glenn Metropolitan.
Yes.
No, Keith Tkachuk, obviously.
Oh, man.
I'm going to say no. I think he is in the hall of very, very good. He's right there on the cusp. I hate to say this because I think it's a little unfair to individual players. I think if he gets a Stanley Cup, he's more in the conversation. But unfortunately, because he never did, that's one thing that a lot of people can point to and say, well, he was big in that cup run and he got a cup, but it never happened for him. So
yeah, I personally, I don't put a lot of weight on the number of cups you have or if you have a cup or not, because that's, it's such a team sport. It's so hard for one or two players to make a difference and to actually, help your team win a cup that you say, I got. I mean, unless you get the MVP, and just like a total standout player, like Tkachuk was, this playoffs, Matthew, putting your team on his back basically. 500 over 500 goals, over 1,000 points. I mean, he's right there. I mean, how many goals did Roenick have? It's over 500.
I think so. Yeah, let me look it up.
He's right on the edge too.
And he is without a cup as well.
Loading slow, of course.
And
he had 513.
He's at 513 and 1,216 points.
Him and Tkachuk are very similar in terms of he had a couple hundred more points or 150 more points, whatever it is, and 10 more goals, 20 more goals, something like that, 25.
Yeah, so, I think Tkachuk is just right outside the bubble, but it's very close. I mean, he didn't have individual awards either at any point. Wasn't even particularly highly ranked for them. I think that part of that just has to do with how selective the Hockey Hall of Fame is. Some other Hall of Fames have not been. So I think, there's no way to say like if he was a baseball player with the same stats, but I think, in that kind of Hall of Fame, he might have a better shot, but hockey only lets in three or four people a year, 2 NHL players, something like that. So he'd have to wait a long time to get his turn if that was going to be the case, I think.
I mean, I hate to say this because he did play a lot of his career in the dead puck era, but he actually never even had a 100-point season. Closest he ever got was 98 in 95-96 with Winnipeg. So I think that's another thing you have to look at and you say, well, how many 100-point seasons did he have if it's a forward? And the answer is 0. So
he did have 2 50-goal seasons, though.
He did. And again, he was great. When the Blues got him, I was ecstatic.
So was I.
That is exactly what this team needs. And I loved having him. And it's funny because, when you're rebuilding, you're thinking, okay, start unloading these players every year. Every year that they held on to Tkachuk, I actually didn't have a problem with it. I was like, yeah, keep him around. He's putting butts in the seats. He's fun to have on the team. He's a great interview. Let him coach these kids. Like, I loved having him on the team and having him around. So yeah, I'm shocked he's at number 1, but I'm happy he's on this team because he is a great player and a great ambassador for the Blues.
His playoff numbers dip significantly than his regular season numbers.
Yeah.
His last 20 playoff games with the Blues, he had 2 goals.
Brutal.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't count. I mean, and in the previous 25 with the Blues, he had 7. So, and he was.
Yeah, I remember people shocked that he didn't perform better in the 01 playoffs, but I thought he was still effective. He just wasn't putting the puck in the net.
He had 9 points in 15 games, only 2 goals though.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I remember one of them was against Belfour, and I remember thinking, anytime you score in Belfour, you're good in my book. Yeah. So Keith Tkachuk, your number 1 pick, and I don't know if you guys have anything else to say about Tkachuk. Otherwise, we'll move on.
I don't think I actually said for sure, but outside looking in for me, just barely for Tkachuk. Not everyone can make it, and I think you got to draw a line somewhere, and I think he's looking in.
You're talking about Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. So second reveal again, Brian Sutter, Brendan Shanahan were number 1 and 2 going into the 35th anniversary team. Do they make it here as a second left wing? The answer is no. It is Pavel Demitra. Mr. Demitra appeared in 3 All-Star games, all with the St. Louis Blues. He is a 1999-2000 Lady Byng Memorial Trophy winner. That season, in 71 games played, he had 8 penalty minutes. His best season as a Blue came in 2002-2003. 78 games played, 36 goals, 57 assists, and 93 points. That was a year that he played on, and I'm just going to make this claim now. You guys can tell me how wrong I am if you like. I think he played in one of the best lines in Blues history, and that was a top line of Keith Tkachuk on the left wing, Demitra at center, and Scott Mellenby on the right side. I thought that line was so much fun to watch. And again, that was Demitra at center. Blues stats, he was number 8 in goals all time with 204, number 8 in assists at 289, number 7 in points at 493, tied for 3rd in plus minus with a plus 99, number 9 in even strength goals with 137, number 8 in power play goals with 63, number 2 in game-winning goals at 45. He's only behind Brett Hull, who had 70, by the way, which is ridiculous. Unfortunately, on September 7th, 2011, he passed away in the Lokomotiv Yaroslavl plane crash. He was 36 years old at the time. I'm going to add this caveat here to start before I pass it off to you guys. I actually think it's bullshit that Pavel Demitra is listed as a left wing. And I'm nothing against our panelists. It was that this is where he was slotted on the all-time team in the 35th year in 2002. The Blues put him at left. Primarily for the Blues, and you can argue with me, I think he was a right wing, but he also played a lot of center. I don't remember him playing left wing really at all. So I actually, to the little insider information, to the panelists, I gave them the option. I said, hey, you can move Demitra wherever you want in the lineup as a center or a right wing. You just have to pick who belongs in his spot on left wing, and I'll move him. And we got a couple people that did it, and it's fine that everybody didn't. It's just there's a lot of good teams, good players to choose from. So I don't think a lot of people wanted to do it. We had a couple people do it. I was one of them. There just wasn't enough to justify the move, so I kept him at left wing here. So he is your second left wing here with the St. Louis Blues all-time team. We started with Kurt last time. So, Steven, your thoughts on Pavel Demitra as the number 2 left wing on the Blues all-time team?
First of all, thank you for calling me lazy for not moving him out of the left wing position. I appreciate that.
That's not what I was doing.
I read between the lines to get what you were really saying. This breaks my heart to say this because Pavel Demitra is one of my favorite Blues players of all time, but this one is even wilder to me that he's ahead of some of the other names here than Keith Kachuk is, because I mean, how you put Dimitra ahead of Sutter, ahead of, to me personally, Steen, Perron are all guys, Shanahan, I think too, are all guys that you could put ahead of him, which is not to, I mean, again, I don't want to go all the way into the negative. He had a phenomenal career here. He had a 93-point season. He won that coveted Lady Bing that every player dreams of putting in their trophy case before they retire, and I think he was a great player. Like I said, I absolutely loved him. One of my very first, favorite Blues players. But just when you look at his career-long impact, his Blues career, under 500 games, almost a point per game, like 1 point away from a point per game in that time. So obviously, incredibly good player, but never like the best. He was the best forward in that year. You mentioned Jeff, but always on teams with Pronger and Kachuk and McInnes and guys that were, some of those were definitely surefire Hall of Famers. Other guys that were, borderline. And then, the not as long an NHL career, not as big an impact outside of St. Louis. I just think a very good player, but ahead of those other guys in terms of just his impact on the Blues. I think that's a little bit of probably elevating him because of, sadly, the circumstances of his passing, which are tragic. And I think he has gotten a little bit of that, I don't want to say sanctified, like it's unfair, like he doesn't deserve a lot of recognition, but I think that does kind of elevate your memory of him, because you think about that a lot in the light of the tragedy, which, certainly is a heartbreaking tragedy, and hate that we lost him so soon. But I do think it kind of colors how people, maybe think about him and have that kind of, rose tinted glasses a little bit. Not that he is not great. He is great. I feel so bad kind of making that argument, but I don't know. I'm very surprised.
He's listed as a center on hockeydatabase.com, by the way. Hockey Reference has him as a left wing. So it just depends where you look, I guess.
I want to say he played left wing when he left here. I want to say when he went to Minnesota, they had him on left wing. And I'm not saying that he didn't play left. I actually think his first year, I think he played left wing and played a lot with Hull. But I think primarily he was more a center and right wing.
He was, I mean, Dimitra was also on some great Blues teams, from 97, 98 until 03, 04. I mean, that was the President's Trophy team was in there. The Quenneville years. I mean, he was on some fantastic teams. So a lot of good memories too from that era, not in the playoffs, but necessarily, except for the one run, but to the conference final. But yeah, I mean, a lot of positive memories, as opposed to, like, I guess when we talked about Kachuk, he was on a number of there was some overlap there with Dimitra, but he was on those shitty the 05, 06, the mid 2000 teams too. So when Dimitra was gone. So I mean, I agree with you, Stephen. This one is, I mean, I'd probably have him in my top 4, but not at number 2. Not over Shanahan, not over Sutter, maybe. Do you guys
want to know where you had him?
I know.
Steven had him at 5.
Okay.
Steven had him at 5. Kurt, you had him at 3.
Okay.
I had him at 2.
Okay.
So he's right where I thought he would be.
Yeah, and I loved Dimitra. Such a fantastically consistent player. Just a good offensive player. Of course, he played a big role in that the Wednesday night wonder, the comeback against Toronto.
Yeah,
that was just a fantastic memory. And then like I said, the President's Trophy teams, the Quenneville teams, he was a big part of those. So yeah, I mean, I love Dimitra, and I've always said that I think that if the Blues were going to retire another number, he's like the only guy left, I think, that fits that bill. If you take everything into consideration, that his career with the Blues, he was a point a game guy essentially, and how he passed away tragically. I think you can make a case for retiring his number. I thought they could have done that at some point here, but it's a borderline. But I think I would. but there's no rules with retiring numbers, so you could, whatever. But yeah, I had him. Was it 3, Jeff? I had him. So that's
Yeah, you had him at 3.
yeah. So I think I wouldn't have put him at 2. I've got a couple of guys that had him at number 2, but definitely top 4 for sure. But yeah, 2 a little surprising that he made that high over some other guys.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think for my money, one of the best lines in Blues history was the Kachuk Dimitra Mellenby line. I just love the way they worked the puck, the way one of those 2 wingers would be crashing the net, usually Mellenby, and Kachuk and Dimitra would just pass. Use, and of course you got Pronger or McInnes out there with them too. I mean, that was such a dynamic and fun line to watch. And then of course another line he was on that Blues fans remember fondly, if you're that old, the Slovak pack. Loved the Slovak pack. They were. It was funny because they were all left-handed, and you rarely have a line of guys that are all one-handedness and then can produce the way they did. If you look back, they didn't put up, people probably remember them and are like, oh, they each probably had 100-point season, right? Like, no, it was not that way. It was the way they crunched time. They would just take the puck and just go on the offensive zone and just cycle for a full minute before they'd start cycling to get off the rink and switch off one-on-one. And it was just so impressive to watch.
The
way
cycling
they read.
The cycling Slovaks, right? They called them that.
Yeah,
so.
Slovak packs, like cycling Slovaks. Yeah, that's multiple nicknames for that line. I remember they tried to remake that later when I think was it Hanzus left, and they brought in like Vladimir Orsaj or somebody who was fucking terrible, and it was just like, no, it's not just because they're Slovaks; it's because they're good hockey players.
Hesht was on that line too, wasn't he? Jochen Hesht, Dimitra, and Barteshko.
He might have been on a line with them at some point.
Yeah,
he wasn't Slovak.
No, I know, but he was on he was part of that group
might
for a while.
Been. Yeah. But yeah, I just love that line, and I will say regarding Pavel Dimitra, the Blues beat the Sharks in 2000 if Dimitra's not injured. He got a concussion at the end of the season, did not play that playoff. I think if they have one more gun out there that's Pavel Dimitra, I think they win that series, and who knows where they go after that.
You think Dimitra being on the team makes Turek stop Owen Nolan's slap shot from outside the blue line?
I don't think we get to that point if Dimitra's on the team. That's the way I see it. Fuck that goal. God. Steven, I don't know if you know, I told this on the show, April 25th, 2000 was when that game happened. Game 7. It was my fucking 15th birthday. I was so excited. My dad surprised me with tickets that morning and said, we're going to the game tonight. We're sitting 8 rows off the ice. This is going to be great. If you remember, the Blues were down 3-1. They won the 2 previous games. So I'm like, there's no way they lose. I remember even NHL.com in the infancy of the internet was like, they posted the schedule that morning of what round 2 would look like. They already had the Blues slotted as the winners of Game 7. Like, even NHL.com was just like, yeah, Blues are winning this.
But that that's bad news. That's bad karma when something like that happens.
I know, but still, it was like no one in the world, even the fucking Sharks fans, were like, there's no way the Blues lose this game. And then Roman Turek gives a fucking red line goal up to Owen Nolan. Has to jump because goalies jump to make saves, right? Like, that makes sense. Fucking moron.
I see that all the
time.
In soccer,
Well, soccer, yes, I'll give you that. But if you're on skates and you're 6'4", why the fuck are you jumping to make a save?
Bill was over at my house, so watching that game, and he, if you know Bill, he's got a temper when it comes to sports, and he was livid. Almost put his fist through my floor. He was mad.
Yeah, I remember just screaming, "What the fuck!" And I looked over at my dad, expecting him to yell at me, and he just looks over at me and he just goes, "Fuck him! Get rid of him! He's fucking terrible." And I was like, "Oh, well, I guess I'm not in trouble."
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Pavel Dimitra. Yes, one of my favorite players of all time. Again, I had him at number 2, so I'm not that surprised by this, but it is. I will say it is a little shocking with the fact that Kachuk took 1, that both Kachuk and Dimitra are ranked higher than some of these guys, namely Brian Sutter. I feel like that was a shoo-in for number 1,
shocker to me. Yeah,
that's a huge shocker that he is at the recording of this show. Before we get to the next episode, Brian Sutter's not on this team. That is very surprising to me.
Almost a crime, you would say.
Almost. Well, guys, hang on. Let me grab something. Our giveaway. It's time to reveal our giveaway for this episode. So this week we are giving away a 2022-23 St. Louis Blues media guide, which, by the way, still has O'Reilly and Barbashev and all those guys in it.
When did they change the media guide from the smaller, thicker book to the magazine type thing?
Oh, it was like 07. It was a long time ago.
I thought they stopped making books completely and just went all digital, like PDF.
No, they still use them as giveaways.
Do they? Okay.
Yep. I used to buy one every year, and it was always the little I don't know, like editor style.
The Danielle Steele size. Novel.
Wow, what a reference.
But yeah, I bought one. I go to the Blue Note Sports Shop every year and I buy the media guide and I would just read it and just look at it and read it. It was so, and, back when you had, no responsibilities as a kid, it's hockey 24/7, right? And
I would always get it for a Christmas present. Okay. And I would, Christmas break, I would just sit there and read all through it the whole time. That's what I did. That and play video games. That's all I did. Because, I'd always get video games for Christmas, too. All right, so revealing our winner of the media guide. So first, we got a runner-up. So if you're watching, I'm sorry that you did not win. But it's somebody we're all familiar with if you're on Twitter. Robert Thomas, the Tank Engine, you are our proud runner-up. You win nothing. Good day. He says, talking about the poll. So the poll for Dimitra that he was involved in. Let me pull that one up. Sorry, real quick. So that was Steen, Dimitra, Perron, and Buchnevich all made that poll. So his comment here is, that's not fair. All those guys are awesome. I went to Dimitra, and all of you should too. So that was a fun little call to who he picked. But our winner, folks, our winner of the Blues Media Guide of 2022-23, Tim, I'm going to mispronounce your name, but I don't care, Hakala, Tim Hakala, Hacala. He gave some good stats here, and I thought, man, he did the research. He deserves the Blues Media Guide because they have a bunch of research in that book. He says average points per 82 games as Blues players, 86 for Buchnevich at 136 games, 82 for Dimitra at 494, 57 for Perron at 673, which how fitting is that? And then 53 for Steen in 765 games. He says the correct answer from this group is Pavel Dimitra, but Bucci may be the choice when his career is done. The right answer, and right all in caps, is Brian Sutter. And he did comment on the other poll as well and talk about how Brian Sutter is a shoo-in for this team. And I think we all think that. We'll see if he makes the team next week. But that was Tim. Congratulations on your win. I will be reaching out to you with your prize.
I'm almost wondering how many people who actually voted actually watched Sutter play.
Oh, not many at all.
Yeah, and that's understandable. He's like, well, I know he was great and everything, but I never saw him play. So how do you put him over a guy like Kachuk, who maybe a lot of people watched his entire career of the Blues? So tough.
Well, and I'll say Tim's commentary on Buchnevich. We actually all said this, Kurt, in our chat when we were talking about Buchnevich making this team. So I was going to reveal this next week, but I'll go ahead and reveal this. There was a tiebreaker between who was going to be the last person inserted into the voting, and it was between Buchnevich and Jaden Schwartz. Schwartz actually ended up not making it at all, which was shocking in itself. But I think we all said at some point when we were all chatting about it, at the end of his career, if he stays a Blue, Pavel Buchnevich might be the greatest Blues left wing of all time. It's surprising a little bit to see him already in the running with Blues fans. I think you got a little recency bias.
A lot of recency bias.
But when it's all said and done, I could see him, if we do this again in 10, 15 years, his name being number one.
Yeah, I mean, I got a long way to go, got to stay healthy, relatively, and you got to, produce. Certainly, I mean, he's off to a great start with the Blues. So, he's got to put in 4, 5, 6, 7 more seasons to probably qualify for some of the stuff. But we'll see. We'll do another one in 10 years. How's that?
Yeah, right. Steven, I hope you're still around. Yeah. Hopefully by the time you guys are 2 guys, 9 cups or something like that.
Let's go.
So panelist rankings.
Sounds like a good movie. 2 guys, 9 cups.
2 guys, 9 cups. Sounds like a movie about beer pong or something.
Yeah.
Panelist rankings. So how we ranked it before it went to the Twitter polls, well, I guess determined the Twitter polls. Number 1, Brian Sutter, still not part of this team. Number 2, Alexander Steen, not part of this team as of now. Number 3, Pavel Demitra, who did make it so far. Number 4, Brendan Shanahan, not on this team. Number 5, Keith Tkachuk, who made it today. Number 6, David Perron, not on there. Number 7, Pavel Buchnevich, not yet. Number 8, Jorgen Pettersson, not yet. So, again, we have 2 slots open, and of course, we've got the utility spots as well. But the way the defense worked out, 1, 2, and 3 in our rankings for both left and right made the teams. It was like pretty clear. The Twitter polls agreed with the panel. Left wing was very topsy-turvy. Keith Tkachuk was ranked number 5 by us. So by our standards, Keith Tkachuk doesn't make this team.
Yeah.
He goes to number 1 by the Twitter polls, and then Pavel Demitra at number 3 jumps up to number 2. So it's kind of crazy how left wing worked out here with the panel and the Twitter polls.
Yeah, seeing Tkachuk at number 5 and the panelist rankings, then seeing that he actually did finish number 1 with the voting, it's like, wow, that's a. I mean, 1 versus 5 may not sound like a big difference, but it's like, well, one makes the team as the best in left wing in Blues history, and the other one doesn't make the team at all. So
yet,
right,
with the first 2 reveals.
Well,
yes.
I mean, with Tkachuk, I mean, it says as far as the panel's rankings go,
yeah, right.
We had him 5th, but everyone else had him as number 1, which is a big difference. Because one's on the team, one's not at all.
Right.
So.
Yep. Steven, you so let's see, of these players, you've seen Steen, Demitra. You probably saw Shanahan play, but not as a Blue, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
And then, of course, Tkachuk, Perron, Buchnevich. You've seen all those guys play. So what's your thoughts here? I mean, we all talk about this is kind of a shocking reveal today, but in terms of those rankings and how it's turned out, at least for the first 2 spots, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm surprised in both cases that they ranked this high. Brian Sutter, I'll say I didn't have him number 1. I think I had him number 2. I know I've looked at it like 10 times tonight. It's late for me, so I keep forgetting. But I know I had Steen number 1, which I'm sure a lot of people would kind of balk at. Maybe that's recency bias, but it's also winning a cup here and playing the most games of any of these guys here, I think, except for Sutter. The Sutter one, though, even though I put Steen ahead of Sutter, the Sutter one kind of shocks me the most. I think part of the reason I felt comfortable doing the Steen ahead of Sutter is like, I was like, well, everybody will put Sutter number 1. I want to be a little, a little different, a little spicy, and I'm very surprised that he's not in the top 2 even. With what he did in his career here. So hopefully we will see him revealed next week for, posterity's sake, so that no one judges our list too harshly.
Yeah, right. And well, that's the funny thing is, like, I've got a feeling that I'm going to get backlash from at least even just maybe just friends of mine, guys I play hockey with, who are going to be like, you guys put Kachuk as number one. What the fuck? And I'm gonna be like, I didn't put him as number one, but like we voted him as number one, which is again, I loved Kachuk, one of my favorite players at the time. But yeah, this is not how I thought this would pan out. This again, defense, I think it worked out exactly how I thought it would work out, and we all ranked it the way that it worked out. Left wing, the minute the votes started coming in, and I know Kurt, you even commented with Shanahan, which we'll talk more about next week and see if he makes the team. But like Shanahan had like 0 votes except for yours for the first like 4 or 5 hours of the poll, which that's when you get the majority of people commenting. And we were both like, what the fuck? Nobody's voting for Shanahan here? Like, what the hell? It was crazy.
It's been too long, I mean, and that's part of it. Like I said, recency bias, I think, played a huge factor in that. And he played here. He didn't play here as long as the other guys, 4 years. It's not a cup of coffee, but it's not a long time either. It's like that gray area of 4 years where his best years were in St. Louis as far as production goes.
Yeah.
So
I do think for me, longevity did play a huge role in how I voted. I know everybody's a little different, but I think that played a big role here with Steen and Sutter being my 1 and 2. But that doesn't have to be the determining factor, but it is pretty crazy when one guy gets no votes over a guy that did have a lot of games or did have a huge impact here.
So who's left? Again, we just ran through the list. Right now, it is so for the last 2 spots of left wing, we've got Brian Sutter, Alexander Steen, Brennan Shanahan, David Perron, Pavel Buchnevich, and Jorgen Pettersson. I almost said Elias Pettersson, which is not correct. Yeah, so those are who's left. There's 6 guys left to fill 2 spots, so we'll see who makes it next week. We talked about how shocking it is, so we'll see if we're still shocked next week. So your next poll. Go ahead.
I'd say all 4 of those guys, arguably, or 4 of those 6 guys deserve to be top 4, and you can obviously only have top 4, and the 2 that made it today also deserve to be. So that's part of this. Is it's really hard to pick 4 out of that group of 6. With respect to Buchnevich and Pettersson, in my personal opinion, they just didn't have the longevity or the impact yet. But the other 6, I think, could all be top 4 easily. So,
100%. And I'll say I think that we're going to have. So again, we have 3 reserve spots open as well. So at the end of naming this team, we'll have 3 players also selected who maybe didn't make, let's call it, the opening night lineup, right? I think at least, if not 1 or 2, will be left wing, because my God, there are too many good names that are not gonna make it. I mean, let's face it. There's 2 spots open, like you said, Steven. You can make the case, obviously, for all 6, but at least 4 of those guys belong on this team. So it's crazy to think that 2 of those guys aren't gonna make it.
Yeah, and then you mentioned Jaden Schwartz, who didn't even make this group,
Yeah.
So I would say definitely, deserves some consideration in that group of 4 too.
I'll say I was not a big Jaden Schwartz fan. I know I've mentioned it on the show. I love his contributions. Don't get me wrong, he's part of the Cup team. I will always love him for that. But he was never somebody who I was like, yeah, that's the guy. But I will say that alone was shocking to me that Schwartz didn't make the team.
I mean, without Schwartz, we might not get out of the first round in 2019.
Definitely.
Yeah, his big game, was that game 5?
The hat trick. The
hat trick was game 6. Game 5 was that tiebreaker.
That tying goal with like 6 seconds to go or something.
Yeah.
No, the game winning goal. Yeah. Out of midair. Such a great goal that gets forgotten. Oh my God.
That was probably one of maybe my favorite goal of that whole run, because it was just so like, what just happened?
Right.
And
John Kelly's
voice. They were
voice.
down in that game.
And John Kelly's voice when he couldn't believe it. It was
so
the spontaneous yelling. It was just great.
So it's funny, and I know I told this on the show at the time. I am the most pessimistic Blues fan when I'm watching hockey. I'm just like, they're gonna get killed. Like they go down 1-0, and I'm like, here we go. They're gonna lose 7-0 tonight. Like I'm one of those kind of fans.
You people annoy me.
I know I'm the worst. That's why you don't want to watch hockey with me.
No, I'm the opposite. I'm the polar opposite.
I'm not like that. So I will say that cup. Well, really, from about mid-February on that year, I became Mr. Positivity. Again, mentioning crappy goalie. I remember at one point late in the season, he's like, "What happened to you? Like all of a sudden, you think this team can actually win?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're gonna win the fucking cup, dude." Like he's like, "What? Who are you? You're not the same person." And I knew it. I just had this thought in my head. I knew it. The only time that I doubted it was that game, Game 5. They were down, and I'm like, this is it. They're going to blow it. They went up 2-0 in this fucking series, and they're not going to win another goddamn game in the whole playoff run. They're done in the first round.
Shades of against LA and Chicago, right?
Yes. And that was, again, recency. I'm like, there's no way they win this shit. And when they scored that goal, I remember just jumping up, and my hand hit the ceiling, and my wife just like sitting there like this, like she didn't even like let out a sound. And I'm just like, oh. I actually thought I was having a heart attack.
That's what I tell people. That cup run was, I mean, hindsight, it was amazing, right? And the wins were just glorious. But man, it was so painful. I mean, it hurt. That whole playoff run was just like so stressful. It made you miserable and so excited at the same time. It was just like painful.
Yep.
One of my most fond memories of that cup run was Game 7 against the Stars. Ian and I were watching it together at my house, and Ian was fully prone on the wood floor with a pillow over his head watching. And I think that might have been the first overtime.
God.
Every time the Stars would get the puck, and take it up ice, you'd see him just lay back down and go, oh.
And you know what's crazy is the fact that I had that feeling about Game 5 that they were done, they were going to lose. I never got that feeling against the Stars, even in Game 7 in overtime. I was like, doesn't matter what the Stars do because the Blues are just going to skate it down and score. That's what I kept telling myself. And my wife was sitting there like I could literally see her sweating. And I'm just like, calm down. It's fine. They're going to win. And she again, same thing. She's like, who the fuck are you? Like, you're not my husband.
You know what was weird about Game 7 against Boston? Going into Game 7, I just had this weird, like, unusual. I mean, I'm always a pretty optimistic guy and a positive guy for the most part, but I had this like ridiculous level of confidence that they were just. I'm like, they've come this far. They can't lose this game. It's impossible. They are not going to lose this game. And then the first period happened where they were getting run over early, right? In the first half of it. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? This can't be happening. We're in trouble. And I was like in shock. And then boom, boom, we score 2 goals late in the period. And I'm like, it was just I'm like, yeah, okay, I was right. I was like, and I bet money on the game. I bet money 3 times in the final, which I don't bet on sports, but I had this weird sense of confidence every time I bet on the team they won in the final. So I'm like, oh, I know for a fact they're going to win. I even knew they're going to win by, was it game 3? It was game 4. Yeah, game 4. I bet on the Blues to win and to win by 2, and they won by 2. I was like, I had this. It was so weird. There's some moments during that final I was just so confident that I'm so positive they're going to win. And Game 7 was that, and that was so weird.
Oh, I was confident the whole final. They lost Game 1, and my friends were whoever pulling out the stats. Whoever wins Game 1 wins. 78% of the time or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't fucking care. They're going to win Game 2, and then they're going to fucking win the series.
Yeah, I bet on them in Game 2 and in Game 4. But Game 2, I was scared to death. Overtime, right? It's like, if they lose this game, fuck. They're down 2-0. Jesus Christ. You can't, it's a completely different. I mean, it's such a huge game. I mean, Gunnarsson, my God.
I mean,
probably the biggest goal in Blues history.
Might be the best moment in Blues history
at
outside
that time,
of an actual cup win.
Yeah, up to that moment, that was probably the biggest goal in Blues history, right? I mean, to get that first final win that stopped you from going. I mean, well, it didn't stop you from losing, but you still could have won. But to clinch that 1-1 series tie, jeez, it's good times.
We are way off topic.
Yep.
But that's what we do on this show, Steven. I'm sure you guys do it over at your show as well.
2 guys, 9 cups.
Yeah,
that's right.
God, I hope I hope you guys have to change your name like all the time, just so you know. I know it's painful and hard to like have to rebrand all the time, but man, I hope you do it every fucking year for a while.
I don't think we'll ever begrudge having to change the name of the podcast.
So next poll will be Friday. We'll have our second right-wing poll. Should be revealed sometime midday. Currently, if you are not on there, if you've not seen it, Thursday is the last day for the first poll of right wing. It is Brett Hall, Joe Mullen, Wayne Babbage, and Greg Pazlowski. This one is fucking unfair to everyone else except Brett Hall. I actually made myself vote for somebody else because I'm like, Brett Hall is going to get a landslide win here, which, he deserves. Don't get me wrong. But it's like, it's going to fucking taint the results because it's like, man, none of these other guys are getting any votes.
Yeah. I mean, Mullen's such a forgotten great player for the Blues.
Yeah.
I remember when they let him go because they just didn't want to pay him. And they moved him, and it's like, oh, are you serious? And he goes on to have this fantastic career with Pittsburgh, win some cups. And I was like, God, that was rough.
Yep, I agree, but we'll see. We'll see how so again, get out there, vote. It's up till Friday. So if you're listening to this Wednesday night live, or if you're listening to it on Thursday, or even Friday morning, go vote. Vote for Hall, Mullen, Babbage, or Pazlowski. And then again, new poll comes up shortly after that one ends for the second right wing. Comment why you voted the way you did or why you didn't vote for someone. And you could have your comment featured on the show, as we saw a couple tonight. And you could even win a prize. So the next, you know what? I'm going to show it off. I'm going to go grab it. Hang on.
You know what Jeff should have done, Stephen, is probably just held Hull's name out of the voting because he's a given. Like make an administrative decision saying Hull's in, end of discussion. Let's vote on everybody else. So everyone else could get votes.
That's not a bad call, actually.
It's a better way to sort out 2 through 4 to actually,
get some
answers.
Right.
Well, Kurt, I know you're gonna love this. This is an unworn T-shirt. This is the next prize we'll be giving away.
Unworn. Yeah, I have to say that.
I do have to say it.
Nice.
Don't ever open the Roman door. For anybody who remembers that from the 2012.
How could you forget that?
Man, oh man.
I bought it at the time.
Open that door.
I bought it and I put it away with my hockey jerseys for some freaking reason. I'm guessing it was probably after I moved to Dallas and then moved back and forgot. I just randomly found it the other day. And I'm like, I never even wore this. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it away on the show. It's a pretty sweet piece of Blues history.
That was a cool moment. The old
it was.
Hitchcock quote. Don't ever open that door. Oof.
Good comment here from Divide by Zero. I was kind of surprised that Nelson Emerson.
I love Nelson Emerson.
I was too. He did get he did get some love from some of us, but yeah, he did not make the final right wing rankings.
Got his autograph over on the wall over there.
Yeah.
My brother's favorite Blues player of all time, actually. I think still.
Speed, man. That guy could skate.
Him and Cliff Ronning. The Blues had Ronning, right, for a while. And then, he after he left the team, then Emerson came along with the second coming of Cliff Ronning.
Yep.
Same style player, short, little guy, fast.
Little guy with gumption.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Lawrence Frazier in the YouTube chat says Brett Hall, Al McInnes, and Chris Pronger were locks from the very start. Yeah, we said it on both the defenseman shows that when Chris Pronger was selected, when Al McInnes was selected, no duh picks, right? Like, there's no doubt. And yes, I mean, I hate to reveal it, folks, in case you didn't realize it, Brett Hall will probably be your number one right wing. So I don't think there's any question there.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry to spoil it, folks.
Yeah, you told me to keep it quiet, Jeff.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I'm just going to go and erase it. It is not Ryan Reeves. I know it's a huge shot.
You know what? If you had added him to the list, he would have gotten a lot of votes.
Oh, I know he would have. And actually, he did get some votes from our panel.
Okay.
But we'll get into that when we talk about right wings. Gentlemen, so tonight we revealed Keith Tkachuk and Pavel Demitra as your 1 and 2 left wing. Any closing thoughts before we close up the show?
Never cease to how's the saying go? Never underestimate the power of stupid people in groups.
There we go.
I started to say the phrase before I realized how insulting it was to the group. I don't mean to call everybody stupid. I'm sorry. That was not what I was going with that. I was just like, I thought it was going to go, never underestimate what the groups can do when they vote. So you never know what you're going to get, I guess. But didn't mean to call everybody stupid.
Yeah, well, hey, thanks for calling all of our listeners stupid. Make sure you tune in next week, folks.
Right.
And we'll call you a bunch of holding.
Yeah, let's see what else I'll call you next week. That was not
Steven, anything from you that's not insulting to our listener base?
You can come listen to Two Guys, One Cup anytime. We don't call our listeners stupid. We call ourselves stupid instead. But we do call our listeners cats a lot of times. So that's, maybe not.
I'll say, you guys, let me ask you. I've only seen the show once. I know you guys are big fans of I Think You Should Leave.
I don't know where this is going. Yeah.
Yes, I've only seen it once, and it's fucking hilarious. So tell me, for someone who's only seen it one time, and maybe somebody like Kurt who's never even heard of it,
what's the show?
I Think You Should Leave.
Like the show, or you want me to actually go?
Both. Why, Steven, you tell us, why should we watch I Think You Should Leave?
Oh boy. I mean, it's one of the shows that I'm most hesitant to recommend to people because it's so weird and eclectic, but it's a sketch comedy show based on basically the title of the show is like the premise of every sketch is someone just ends up acting so ridiculously that they don't actually say it each sketch, but that's basically the idea is like, oh, they should get out of this situation. It's just hilarious. It's so dumb and weird and funny, and it's a factory for memes. You know what? Here's the best pitch for why hockey fans should watch it. There's I Think You Should Leave hockey meme account called I Rink You Should Leave. And just for the sake of understanding that content, you should watch the show, and because it's a great fan account as well.
Isn't there?
I Rink You Should Leave. That sounds like someone not from this country trying to speak English, but it's like I Rink You Should Leave.
What does a rub off means?
What's a rub off means? Yeah, right. Exactly.
Rub off means.
Yeah, right.
I want to say I saw a skit that had Larry David in it, and it was I think it was Larry David, and it was like a focus group. I might totally be making that up.
It's not Larry David. It's an weird Italian actor, but it is a classic. That is one of the classics.
All right. Well, check that out. I know you guys are big fans. Plus, you love Pokemon, right? I'm not a big Pokemon guy myself, but I know that you're a big fan.
My kids were into Pokemon for a while.
We're a lot younger than you, Jeff, so that's probably the reason why.
My wife is 3 years younger than me, ish. Yeah, about 3 and a half years. And she says that all of her friends were into Pokemon, but she was not. So I'm not that old, Steven.
I'm just teasing. Ian also went to the Taylor Swift concert in Chicago this weekend, so the Swifties. There's Swifties in the audience. Expect a long breakdown on this upcoming episode.
Oh, good.
So he saw her swallow a bug. Is that when she did that?
Yeah, probably
in Chicago.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
about that
because she does like 3 shows in a weekend. So
okay.
I don't know which one she did it at. But
did you hear about that, Jeff?
No, I did not hear about that.
She was on stage singing, and it was an outdoor, I guess, venue or the open air, and a bug flew in her mouth and she swallowed it.
God, that's awful. I feel sorry about it. Well, hopefully she writes a song about breaking up with that bug.
The tragic life of the bug, right?
All right, fellas. I think we're ready to close her up. Steven, again, I want to thank you for coming on and give you a second again. I know we did this last time, but everyone can find you on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called. Anywhere else? Anything else you'd like to promote?
I believe. You can check us out at 2 Guys 1 Cup, all spelled out with letters on the Twitter machine, and I'm over at the Hockey Writers as well, writing about the Blues and suffering through that. So,
you guys ever think of doing like a what's the word? A spin-off podcast of like females, and you could call it. I don't know. I don't know. I can come up with something, I'm sure.
Yeah.
2 ladies, 1 championship.
That's right. There you go.
2 ladies, 1 championship. That's got to be it, right?
I'm pretty sure there is already a podcast called 2 Girls, 1 Cup.
2 Girls, 1 Lord Stanley's Cup.
We have some kids, surprisingly, that listen to the show. I know for a fact. Don't look that up.
We should not reference.
Just so you all know.
No. I mean, no. You gotta. It's. Have you seen it, Jeff? The video?
Of course, yes, I have.
Of course,
I'm not proud of it.
I actually have not.
You have not. You've got the parody name, kind of the spinoff,
right.
but you haven't seen it.
You need
to do some research before your next show.
Yeah.
When it first came out, my brother made me watch it and like did the whole live reaction thing, and it was funny because my dad walked the corner because we were at our parents' house. My dad walked around the corner and saw it, and he just goes, "What the hell are you 2 watching?" And I'm just like, hey, I don't know. Blame the other one. This wasn't me. I didn't want to watch this.
You only have to watch it once, because once you do, it's like burned in your brain.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It's like a DVR, permanent DVR.
That's right.
All right, that's enough. We don't need to talk anymore about it. Oh, boys. All right. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by ID Life, the world's only truly personalized vitamin platform based on a health assessment of your DNA. Visit rockinthatidlife.com for more information. That's rockinthatidlife.com, and get 10% off by emailing Dustin at rockinthatidlife@gmail.com and tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you. And by Mike Burgoyne from Real Brokerage Realty. Visit strikewithmike.com today for all of your home buying and selling needs. That's strikewithmike.com. And by Center Ice Brewery, St. Louis's tasty hockey-themed beer. Check out your local beer vendors for availability. That's Center Ice Brewery beer. Please drink responsibly. That will wrap up episode 7 of season 12 of the original St. Louis Blues hockey podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio. Thanks for listening, and thanks to those who participated in the YouTube and Facebook live chats during the live show. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. For Stephen Ground of 2 Guys 1 Cup and Kurt Price, as well as producer Austin and Bill Day, I'm Jeff Ponder. Until next time, everyone, let's go Blues.
Let's play pickleball.
What do you got, Steven? We need a closing line from you.
Let's never watch that video again.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
You thought I was going to say, son of a bitch, didn't you?